Good morning, Australia. Brekkie in the West. It's a brunch in, well, the eastern part of the country. In the U.S., just past dinner time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Baseball Australia. We're on the air. It's our weekly show, and Paul, Morgan, and I, we're coming to you right now. Let's open this thing up in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. And we roll right there. Paul Morgan will join me in just a moment. Glad you guys are on. Welcome to Talking Baseball Australia. My name is Dan Vaughan, and I'm going to do a little graphic work here. Roll this and bring him in. It's that time of the day. It's post Royals breakfast, or probably Royals post Blue Jays. Pardon me, partner. Post Blue Jays breakfast for you. My bad. I got your team wrong there. I was watching the Royals on TV to my left, and I'm thinking about them, and I'm thinking, wait, it's post Toronto breakfast for you in the West. Good morning, my friend, and happy Friday to you, mate.
Well, it is. Happy Friday to you, DV. Good Friday morning. Another Blue Jays loss, a narrow loss, which has been the story of their season so far. But you get that with a young team, DV. So it is. But look, it's, who knows? Who knows how many games they've got left already this week? There's news sort of as we, of course, we all know about what's happening with the Miami Marlins, and news just down for the Blue Jays as well around the Phillies, which a clubhouse official and a coach has got COVID for the Phillies. And so the Blue Jays won't go down to Philadelphia this weekend to take on the Phillies. They'll twiddle their thumbs in Washington, I believe. So it's, the mess has began, DV.
And it's this whole 2020. Today is kind of the microcosm of the whole year. It's basically what this year's been, because early this morning, I'm doing my workout, looking at the morning box scores, and I knew that obviously the Marlins were on the shelf, and other teams have been affected. A couple of dominoes have been hit. But then you have mid-afternoon, about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, the Phillies announced that there'll be no baseball activities in their ballpark. And then shortly as we come on the air, we learned about a half hour, 45 minutes ago, no Toronto and Philadelphia this weekend. This thing, it just continues to snowball, and it's amazing how it keeps doing that. I mean, it's and that's what's been happening in 2020. We've gone from things seeming kind of normal and a great. You and I had a trip to Canberra even for a playoff game, and then suddenly since then we're not sure we can even crawl to Canberra now, right?
Yeah, and we're not sure if we had COVID or not at the time because we were both pretty crook, but it's. But to be honest,
we can't say we didn't have it.
No, we can't officially say that we didn't, but we don't know. Well, no one here though at the time, did we? Both you and I, pull the curtain back on that game in Canberra. I think we never got out of bed until almost. I think the game started at 7. I don't think we got out of bed until 6 o'clock and dragged ourselves. Fortunately, the ballpark was just a couple of meters away that we got to. We got there where we didn't have COVID, so we're all good. But
we're all. By the way, real quickly here, William, going to see us spotting Shane Harold as well. But go on. I'm sorry. What was you just say there before I interrupt you?
No, I was just about to say, DV, as well. My phone just got an alert as well. So part of that which we'll touch on a little bit, but Major League Baseball just announced as well they've signed off with the Players Association that 7-inning doubleheaders are going to be a thing starting August 1st because, as we've just said, they've got a lot of games to catch up. They've all got to do 60 games, and it's they've got to catch up somehow.
It's exactly what they do in the minor leagues. We do in the ABL and what we do in the American Association. No one ever loves doubleheaders, but to get those games in, you got to chop them down to 7, and I remember last year. I think I've talked about this on the broadcast in Australia with you and Simon. The T-Bones had a stretch last year where they had 2 doubleheaders in a week, two 7-inning doubleheaders, and swept both of them. And we had a chance to make up ground in 1 week because of that. Also, by the flip of the coin is those 7-inning ball games. Suddenly, you get the 5th inning. Your setup guy's up, right? If you go, your starter goes 4 innings and your bullpen comes up in the 5th, 6th, 7th, those games shorten dramatically, and suddenly you can easily find yourself getting swept a couple of times too. So it works both ways. 2 chances to win, but 2 chances to lose as well.
That's it. And it's hard. And as you said, as we always say in the ABL, DV, it's very hard to very hard to sweep double headers on a consistent basis. So all of a sudden, that throws us another spanner into the works as to where all these teams are going to finish at the end of the season. But anyway, that will be happening as of Sunday. So Monday here in the West, but Sunday it will be all happening. But I think what you're about to bring up has probably been the most exciting thing to happen in baseball this season.
Yeah. This is we've all been waiting for this, and I'm going to play the video in the background. I'm going to give you
Joe Kelly threw a
second to put the audio down there. There we go. You can see the video. This is what happened 2 nights ago in Houston, the Dodgers and the Astros. We talked a lot about this. When was this going to happen? How often would the Astros get thrown at? Was we kind of forgotten with all the spring training 2.0? What exactly had happened? You can see right there the John Kelly. He's kind of Joe Kelly. Pardon me. John Kelly is a former closer in Chattanooga years ago. But you can see that whole dust up. It was there was no benches clearing brawl, but both benches emptied, and both ball clubs were ready to square off and do what they had to do. But again, we're waiting for this to happen. This was the first of the sort of dust-ups we expected, right? I mean, we were not surprised, but again, I'm going to play that video for you one more time, but you can kind of get an idea of what happened. It wasn't, throwing behind somebody and what have you. But your thoughts on that? I mean, we're not surprised, are we, mate?
No, I'm not surprised at all. And to be honest with you, and I think where a lot of people are taking issue with it is, I think Joe Kelly, it may have been a 3-0 count that he threw behind, and a lot of people were saying, look, if you're going to throw at a guy, throw at him in the first pitch, so at least he expects it. But look,
you always wonder about
it's wild to think
Correa went behind him
I'm on board with these people
both
who
runners
moved
up on the play.
Like almost
was not
gobsmacked that he copped an 8-game suspension, but these guys cheated and haven't ever got a suspension whatsoever. So
right.
I'll let the announcer take over for this.
I think no one was hurt, and baseball is. I think baseball as a product is really struggling at the moment. I actually think this was a storyline that kind of brought the fringe baseball people into baseball as well. I mean, made the news on ABC here in Australia. It's sort of like, I know they can't necessarily go out and condone this kind of behavior constantly, but it's probably a good thing for baseball, because all of a sudden you're taking away, the narrative of the asterisks, the cheaters, the shame tour of 2020, is actually probably a better narrative for baseball to run at the moment because of all the mess that's going on in the background. It's going to bring people together a bit more.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that, because I think of it too. By the way, just for a program note for you, my longer video didn't load in for some reason. I guess I must have been a bad edit, but all good. Okay, I'm going to use cricket as an example as a North American. If you ask me, okay, give me what can you tell me about cricket? What are maybe 5 or 6 things you can tell me? And I'd probably say, they wear nice sweaters. They wear white, most of the time wear white pants. They break for lunch or tea or whatever. I mean, there's certain stereotypes of cricket, right? And baseball has their certain stereotypes. One of them being sunflower seeds. Guys tend to adjust themselves to the plate. That's one of the big things people always say. And the whole argument with the umpires or the benches clearing brawl, getting hit by a ball, that's kind of the stereotype of baseball. And I think you're right. The casual fan, those things sort of, I mean, what's going to get people to tune in? Another 6-walk performance by a pitcher, or a guy beating a couple of guys and benches clearing. I mean, that's just simple. And you're right. That fringe fan comes in all of a sudden because he's like, hey, wait, this is kind of fun.
Well, that's it. It's they've got a similar thing going on in the West Indies at the moment. In the cricket, there's a gentleman who plays for the West Indies who is a little bit like Bartolo Colon, maybe not the most athletic built person on the planet, but he's got the popularity he's got. And again, it's about right now, and you and I have said it before. I mean, it is hard. I know you've watched a bunch of games this season. I've watched a bunch of games. It's sort of hard to get super enthused into all the game. I think you'd have to be blindly hardcore to sit there from, first pitch to last pitch, because I don't know but surprisingly, I find that some of the broadcast, because I've just been chopping and changing through different teams, some broadcasters are doing it quite well, but surprisingly, probably ESPN is doing it the worst of the lot at the moment. And and their broadcast is actually brutal. So,
and I think I have an idea why that is, because I'll tell you, listening and watching the Rangers at home this weekend, I'm not a big fan of their play-by-play crew. They're good, but I'm not in love with them. But I thought their product and their performance and the overall show was much better on a local level than the national level. And I think the reason is those guys were at the park. The actual announcers, the home announcers, were at the park. Now, the visiting announcers were back in their studio in Colorado and Arizona. But I think that those ESPN guys are scattered across the country. And you and I both know how hard it is. We talked about it last week. Yeah. It's very hard for us to connect all those dots and then not be in the ballpark at the same time. Yes, it does cut down on cost, but I found the product of the guys in the park much better than the guys that weren't. I mean, that was kind of my take on it there.
Well, you're right. And I think what no crowds and no atmosphere, and why the ESPN broadcast is lagging a little, in my opinion. And we've talked about it before. Like, there are a lot in baseball, probably more than any sport anywhere. There are a lot of cookie cutter broadcasters that don't really have a lot of personality to them. I don't know why. It just is the way it is. But if you mix that with no sort of localism, you're just kind of talking about the game, and you're not really. I don't know. Like, it blows my mind, even in these broadcasts, that you've got even the broadcasters have such an opportunity to do something totally different. Why keep doing the same shots? Like, why not get roving cameras out into the streets or something? Why not interview the guy? I don't know, if you're in St. Louis, interview the guy that runs the bar closest to the ballpark or something. I don't know, like, just something different. But
I'm with you.
It's
the bartender cam. Bartender cam.
Why not? I mean, they're doing stuff in the AFL here. They have, a bunch of fans join Zoom, and like, all that's not great, but the goal gets kicked. They sort of, they throw to the fans in Zoom. They're all in their gear cheering, and it's something different. But I think, if broadcasters like ESPN continue going down the way they're going, like, boy, it's not good for the game.
And you and I had a leg up a couple of years ago. We'll pat ourselves on the back here, but one of the things we brought to the Australian Baseball League in the radio side of things was interactive broadcasts. We had a chat going. We were going back and forth, and it's something I do in Kansas City, where my radio broadcast was very interactive. Today, I listened to one of our old broadcasts on my lunchtime show today, and it was I always forget how interactive those are. And I think it's something I think that we all is talking to the American Association folks and the ABL folks, nothing's off the table this year in anything in sport. And I think why not? If there was ever a year to experiment to see what's going to work, we talked about this. Every show we said this. If there ever was a year to experiment, this was it. The Rangers, for example, climbed up to the top of the stadium with the retractable roof, and it made me sick watching them do this. But there was a reporter and a cameraman looking over the center field from 20 stories up, and I was like, oh, but hey, it was cool, and people wanted to see that crap. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of cool. One thing they miss, and I'm going to give you this video. I put this in the rundown, and I don't know if you saw this. I'm going to play this for you guys, and it may not look on your screen. I'm going to actually play it. Paul, I'm going to bring you down for a second, so you'll come back in a moment, but I want everybody to see this full screen. I want to see if you guys notice what I'm playing for you, because this is something we talked about, you and I talked about before the season started. I'm going to go ahead and play it here. Let's see if you guys see this. This is a Nelson Cruz home run against the Chicago White Sox a couple of days ago. Okay, it's a home run to left. I don't know if you guys see this. Just watch it. Okay, you watch the home run. I don't know if you guys caught what I saw. I'm slowing it down for you again. Slowing it down for you one more time here. Do you see what I see? Did you see that? One more time for you. That's Nelly Cruz, one of my favorite Rangers of all time. There we go. Cruz right there, Paul, in case you didn't see it. And I'm going to rewind it just for you guys on the screen there. Just
nice little
did you? Yes, he just, again, he spit away from the first baseman, but clearly in the video, even in his normal time, I did a double take going, I was watching the highlights, looking more or less for Lewis Thorpe and Aaron Whitefield highlights. When I saw that, I went, wait, I mean, maybe it's the spit cam, but I thought that in this day, I'm in my morning jog this morning, or what are you going to call it, I try not to even spit doing that. I mean, I don't want to be that guy. And here's Nelly Cruz rounding first base, and he's that guy. How about that, huh?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Even seeing, like, I think a lot of they talked before the season, after home runs and whatnot, no high fives, no. I think that's all out the window too. I mean, I've seen so many guys, so many guys that just break protocol left, right, and center. But it's I think it's hard because it's all habitual, and Nelson Cruz is very much in the back end of his career, still a very good hitter.
Right.
But I mean, he would have done, I don't know off the top of my head how many home runs he's hit, but it's it's more than one. But it's he would have done that a bunch of times. And it's probably he's probably done it. He's probably got to second base and thought, I've just broken COVID protocol. Hopefully no one's picked it up. And I'm not sure whether it'd be interesting to see whether he got a fine or whether, someone's had a chat to him about it or what. But
I hadn't seen anything on it. And like I said, I was watching those highlights today and I was like, wait a second. Did I just see that? Did I just see him round first and blow it out there? I'm thinking he hit like three. I think he hit 2 home runs in that series or in that game.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wait, did I just see that? And I don't know. I don't know if a fine's coming, but I thought I'd bring that down. Let's touch a couple things real quickly here. The Miami situation, the trickle down. We already talked about it once, but again, how the week changes. Marlins maybe or maybe didn't party in Atlanta too much. Maybe picked it up in Atlanta. Maybe picked it up in Philadelphia. We don't know for sure, but it leaning toward their spring training trip to Atlanta. And then the trickle down effect. That's the scary thing to me about this whole deal, Paul, is that the Marlins, that one team, how it's affected everybody else around you. And then you get a team like the Yankees who decide, okay, we're going to go to Baltimore and change our schedule up because they can kind of do that. This is, again, everything's on the table here. Change the schedule up. But your thoughts on the Marlins partying too much in Atlanta?
Well, it's just I don't know.
Assuming they did,
assuming they did, which is probably closely accurate. I was reading before. There's something else in Formula One. One of the drivers, Sergio Perez, went back down to Mexico. He's caught COVID, so he can't race this weekend. Look, I think it's pretty well known if you're an athlete at the moment. I think probably at the end, maybe NBA have done it the best of the lot with the bubble and everyone just living in the resorts, but you just can't do it. If you're going to play, and you want to get paid, you just like life's not great if you're going between the ballpark and the hotel. I get that. Like it's no one's really having the time of their life doing that, but it's just like that's the way it has to be now. And look, it's just again because you talk about if they talk about that was a couple of weeks ago. Now the Marlins have played games since, so who knows who's infected. They've stayed at a hotel, maybe guests. Maybe staff at the hotel. I know the Blue Jays came in and stayed at the same hotel, I think, as the Marlins, and just and then you've got teams like Washington made a decision before the Marlins got banned. Washington decided they're not going to Miami whatsoever. But you're right, Diva. You might have I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a case of who knows. You just have to play 60 games, and I don't know. You're going to kind of maybe it's just going to be like maybe the Yankees are going to ring the Astros or something and say, you guys free on Wednesday? All right, great. Well, let's hop into a park, but let's get some out of 60 games.
We'll meet you in Nashville halfway or something. I don't know. Yeah. First off, Simon, good to see you, Iceman. GM says I don't want to forget the Astros are cheaters. For some reason my chat's not working. I apologize, guys. Not a fan of doubleheaders, she says. And then Harold says time to start cloning players. Yeah, that's kind of what the taxi squad is, the cloning players. I want to give you what I was on This Week in the Association podcast in the States this week, and I was wrong. And I think this bodes well for the Australian Baseball League, and I'll tell you why. I thought initially that Major League Baseball, because of their overreach, they got this huge front offices in every ball club. Major League Baseball's got an eye everywhere. They've kind of they're the big boy in the street, right? They're the big bad Major League Baseball. They would have no trouble working with each ballpark individually, each team, and they'd be able to control this whole thing. My worry was the American Association with 6 teams of the 12 playing. With limited resources, small front offices, small a president and a director, and a real small office, they'd have a heck of a time enforcing protocols, testing, and safety of players. And how wrong I was, because it turns out that the smaller bubble, smaller process has been successful in they've had one COVID out so far. They've had more rainouts than COVID games. They've had one game lost to COVID the first weekend, and that's been it. The association's now headed to August, their stretch drive. And my thinking is, because of that setup, I think the ABL, because it's a smaller league, smaller front office, smaller protocols, that may bode well, keeping a smaller group of folks safe as opposed to a big operation like Major League Baseball. I think that bodes well for the ABL. What do you think about that? Am I crazy to think that?
No, I think you're right, because you look at even the NHL, which has just started back up. They've got the Eastern Conference is all in Toronto, and the Western Conference is all in Edmonton, and they're just going to roll games consistently through Toronto and Edmonton. And look, it minimizes the risk for sure. And maybe retrospectively, Major League Baseball potentially needed to have a bunch of teams just in New York. Maybe you had to have, using Yankee Stadium, using Mets Stadium, maybe even, I know they don't want to go to minor league ballparks, but maybe that
right.
Brooklyn Cyclones field over there, you play a couple of games in there, but maybe you're playing triple, maybe it's like the old days when they're 10 years old and you're playing, you're playing a 9 a.m. game one day and you just get through it. And I think, I don't know, like I think MLB is really, I think they're the hardest because there's still so much travel involved. And, your Rangers, they got a lot of travel still.
Yeah,
they got to go to a lot of different parts of the country. But
especially going west.
I'm not sure, but look, this guy that you got on the screen there, DV.
Yeah, I was going to show you that. And funny you make that point. I remember as my summer league team I'd play out after high school season was over, we had slotting game times were 6 and 8. Well, the 6 o'clock game was always about 95 degrees, and you want to play under the lights at 8. So when you had the 8 o'clock game, you're like, but I look at the schedule and come out and go, oh, crap. Oh, good, 8 o'clock. You had the 8 o'clock game, and you also had a better chance that maybe your lady friends would show up later too. So that was all back in the day when my salad days. Yes.
We saw a photo of you this week. I saw.
Yes, yeah, it was pretty nice.
The baseball kit.
Yeah, the baseball kit looking. I'll post that next week for us in the show. I'll bring it out. This gentleman made his debut over the weekend. A couple of pitch run performances, all good. Back-to-back ball games. The Twins playing pretty good. But then we find out yesterday evening that Aaron Whitefield had his first at bat and made a couple of plays in the outfield, looking pretty good in center field as well. But exciting. We talked about him making the roster last week. He made his debut over the weekend. Anytime an Australian makes it, it's a huge deal. Congratulations to Aaron Whitefield, and way to go, Australia.
Yeah, and look, the Twins are, and I said it earlier that, they were my pick for the World Series. I'll still stand by it. I still think they've got a good enough team to do it. But, he's making it in a team. That's the bigger thing. He's making it in a team that is actually, a good team. And but if he doesn't look out of place and, he was running well on the bags, and he might get a few more. Everyone seems to be a big rap on him at the moment. But a huge deal for Aaron, and just, like of the mess that 2020 is, that has to be for us, has to be the highlight by far.
Oh, there's no doubt. And of course, the fun part about it, and I don't know how much you got a chance to listen to. One of the games is on FS1, and the other ones were on the regional network. One was in Chicago. Well, the Chicago games were in. I heard the Chicago broadcast, but I heard some of the Twins broadcast last night, and it was kind of cool to hear them talk about his play in Australia and about his defensive work. And it's cool to hear our game championed like that on national television. It's good. And I love hearing that. I don't know how much you got a chance to hear. Did you get a chance to hear much of that?
Yeah, I did. And look, I was reading and listening a bit more about, particularly around the manager's thoughts on Aaron Whitefield and the fact that they love that he brings something different to everyone else that they have in the center field position, a bit more versatility there. Look, they seem to have a lot of faith in him, which is, the first part. And, he's an extremely likable guy and a good player as well. So here's hoping, DV, for a long career. And maybe in those, maybe one day that your Rangers and the Twins have a powder blue off.
Yes, I love him in that powder blue. And you can't really see it. Let me put this on well, you can't really see him. Put him up on the screen real quickly there. You can see him there. That's him out in center. So Sergio Romero there. I think I've got one more little stretch of this just right here. You can see it right there, I believe. Sorry about that. Yeah, you can see him in the powder blue going to get it right there. There he goes. good looking uniforms, those powder blues. I love those. Good looking uniforms. You fan? I love the powder blue. How about you?
Yeah. Well, the Jays are powder blue. I think their Sunday kits are powder blue as well. I love it. I saw the Rangers in that kit the other day. I don't know. I think it's such a good look, that powder blue, and they all. It's the jersey I'd buy. Anyway, I'd buy a powder blue jersey before any else. But
and I grew up in a time where that was the jersey. That was the one that was one of the road jerseys back in the 70s and 80s. Most teams had them: Royals, Brewers, Braves. I mean, Cubs. The list goes on. Expos. Oh, the Expos are famous for it. But another guy having a nice little role right there. There he is on the screen, Liam Hendriks. First off, before I go to Liam, I'm going to just read. Lewis Thorpe had a relief outing as well this week. There was actually there was a lot of talk of that one ball game because actually Thorpe and Whitefield both got a chance to be in the same ball game that day, and a lot of Australia talk. I went back and listened to some of that, and it was really cool to hear. So far, 2 2/3 of relief. He worked in that 10-2 blowout over the weekend, and he had 2 2/3 hitless baseball for our man Lewis Thorpe, who I think's got such a high ceiling. I know you do, but you got two guys in the same roster. Makes it easy for us to cover them and check those box scores daily.
Well, I think still 3 is the record for when the Oakland Athletics had Hughes, Rich Hill, and Grant Belfour. So who knows? I don't know.
That's right.
Maybe Hendricks can get traded to Twins or something.
And I love seeing that too. I love seeing Luke Hughes, for example. Luke, if you guys follow Luke on Twitter, and a good mate of ours, we're such big fans of Luke. He was tweeting. Obviously, Luke was up watching Aaron Whitefield. I mean, he was following it, and that's so cool to see. A former big leaguer, member of Team Australia, one of his teammates. But I mean, Luke is supporting the game he loves, the country he loves, and it was so cool to see those tweets from Luke, and I loved seeing that. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And
go ahead.
No, you go.
I'm going to roll right into this gentleman right here. I'm going to bring him on the screen there, Liam Hendriks, real quickly for you guys. Liam getting the little bounce out there in the 8th inning, and he had a nice week. And then Liam Hendriks came in and worked that 8th and 9th. Actually came in and faced one batter in the 8th, and then the 9th inning got the save there. It's the final out. It's the final couple of outs there in the ball game, though. But Liam, he looks good. What I love about watching Liam this year, and really saw this from him last year, or maybe late the year before, maybe the latter part of the year. And I want to get your thoughts on this, partner. It seems like the Liam Hendriks we're seeing now, the guy that we're seeing circa 2020, late 18 and all of 19, is a guy we're seeing a guy in Liam Hendriks evolving as a player. He's now no longer the back and forth guy. He was a back and forth guy to a degree, just kind of in the lineup, out of the lineup, or not supposed to line up the roster and back out. But we're seeing a guy develop into a solid arm in the big leagues. He looks, seeing him going back 4 or 5 years ago with the Twins, he seemed sort of shifty. His body mechanic, his pitching mechanics are fine, but he seemed very uncomfortable at times. He seemed like he could be flattered, kind of flustered a bit. He's not that way anymore. This is a guy that is a veteran. He's polished, focused, and I'm seeing a guy who's having fun out there. Who's got a little pep in his step. Don't you notice that too? He's got a little Grant Balfour in him, maybe a little bit more of a Balfour approach to it.
Well, I think you nailed it, DV. I think when his time with the Twins, he was always at that point where he was one bad start away or one bad relief away from getting sent back down to AAA. Of course, come to Toronto, started to really establish himself in Toronto, but he was still at that point, and he, I used to listen to if he came on and didn't have a great outing, the sports radio on the fan would light up and like, why is this guy here? Get rid of him. But he become an all-star last year, as we all know, with the Oakland Athletics. But he looks like he's arrived. He looks like he's belonged. He looks like, I guess he feels like he ain't going to AAA anytime soon. And look, maybe like any of us, I think when you've got a job and you feel like you're not going to get sacked every day, like you're probably going to perform better and you're going to feel a bit more comfortable, like settle yourself in a bit more. And that's where he seems to be right now. And it just seems to be, you're right. He seems to have a bit more confidence, a bit more fire on the mound. And He is. Oakland seems to suit him, and maybe it's the green and gold he wears every day. I don't know, but it's
yeah, very much so. I mean, I think I'm very interested that you say that. I think you're right on about that. And I just see a guy, and it all began in Toronto when they moved to the bullpen. Remember he was kind of back and forth rotation, a bullpen piece. Then became a bullpen piece. He got that late start in the postseason with them, but he was mostly a bullpen piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think staying someplace, B, also getting an arbitration eligible contract where he was signed to an arbitration contract with guaranteed money. That also changes your attitude too. When you know your paycheck's coming, I think that changes, but he has really morphed into a solid arm. And I love watching him pitch. I love what he does, what he does now. He's just phenomenal stuff.
And I think as well, one big plus that he had, one big bonus he had, is he was part of the 2015 Blue Jays team, which was obviously, nearly got all the way. But they had 45,000 fans at every single game, like in the regular season going in. It was loud, and it was, we remember against the Rangers, the beer cans going on the field in the postseason. But, that place was rocking, and the Blue Jays were the kings of Toronto that season. I think it allowed him to really live that big league experience as well, and that kind of got that boy. I mean, that feeling of him every time he was in the bullpen. I mean, and that place, and because it's a dome as well, that place is loud and those fans are rowdy, and it kind of gave him that thing. I mean, why wouldn't you want to pitch in front of that kind of environment? Then in Oakland, he's just developed into that. But
yeah, no doubt.
Oakland's another one of those. It's funny though when we watch games in Oakland, because that's another stadium that rarely gets a lot of people to it. But that's the other one that doesn't look out of place at the moment. That and Tropicana Field both do not look out of place.
I don't really notice much difference. It's when I'm watching, Wrigley or the Astros, the Dodgers the other night, and the Rangers are playing at a brand new ballpark, and that place would be the place to be right now, but no one's leaving the house, so it's kind of crazy. Show is baseball's best mate. That's Talking Baseball Australia. My name's Dan Vaughan. Paul Morgan. I should have probably told you guys this about a half hour ago as we're rounding third, heading for home. Going to close this thing out shortly, but amateur hour at the Apollo, I suspect. But a couple things I wanted to, first off, and I was going to play a video, but I'll go ahead and get it. There was a pretty exciting day for Australian connections, and I mean guys who play in the ABL. You love to see guys who came over. We talked about Brosseau, Mike Brosseau, and of course his teammate G-Man Choi with Tampa had a big weekend, and I'm missing somebody here. Well, who am I missing here?
Kevin Kiermaier had a good
Kiermaier. Yeah, I had the Kiermaier video waiting for it to load here, but Kiermaier had the big walk-off RBI double against the Blue Jays, unfortunately. I don't know why the poor Blue Jays are in the punching bag tonight. Sorry, mate. But you're seeing some things, and this is what's fun about the ABL. I don't think we saw this. When you and I began in 12-13, you didn't see a lot of ABL alums except for big league Australians. I mean, the guys like Luke, guys like that, Luke Hughes. You didn't see a lot of guys, big league guys, like you do now. Now you're seeing ABL alums all over the place.
I'm trying to rack my brain. I think probably Didi Gregorius is the first one, but I think he may have been the first one to go for the revamp that ABL. That's non-Australian that might have gone into play in the big leagues. But now it's getting to that point where like you are getting. I mean, even for Anthony Alford, who was with the Canberra Cavalry, he came on as a pinch runner last night for the Jays, and you're starting to see a lot more teams, which is so cool to see, and it's such a vital part of. And it's sort of it's you and I have spoken about it a lot with the ABL, and we're very positive about the league. But it's I still feel like the direction has to be into Major League Baseball. I feel like the direction for the league. I'd love to see that connection with Major League Baseball come back a bit, because it is so cool to see what's happening with these guys that are going into the big leagues at the moment, and it's great and I think as far as growing the game in Australia, like it's critical that you can start going, oh, that's a Jake Fraley guy. Remember we used to watch him at the ballpark, and now look at him. He's at the Seattle Mariners, or Brosseau, or he's at for Adelaide, G-Man Choi, and these kind of guys. Like it's I think as far as growing the game at a grassroots junior level, I mean, I think it's pretty cool if there's Perth kids out there with a signed baseball with Fraley and Brosseau on there, and maybe some Melbourne people have Ronald Acuna and these kind of things. I think it's cool.
I saw Simon on here a moment ago. I'll use his son Calvin. When we were there, when Fraley and Rousseau were there, he was, kind of in that young, what they call the Heat Colts or that age group, and they were having clinics with those guys, so then you fast forward a few years later, and you got a guy that's in the big leagues, and you see these kind of guys, and you see these Kiermaiers and others that are out there. I think that only because remember in 12 and 13, remember in 14, 15 when Michael Ullman was close to the big leagues, we were like, come on, Michael Ullman, make the big leagues. Come on, Jack Murphy, make the big leagues. And now we got ABL alums all over the place making the big leagues and doing things like Kiermaier did.
And if you went to a Rays game and you had a Heat kid on or an Adelaide kid on or something like that, I mean, these guys are going to look at you and go, "Oh wow, cool! Like you've come from Adelaide or Perth or Australia or wherever." But
yeah, I think it's great. Cool. It's great stuff. But you see, that's the
you may as well roll the tape, DV, and just
there's the tape. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to run this into you, but I finally found it. I was just presuming it. But I want to close with something. I'm going to skip through the indie ball report. There are a lot of guys that we're seeing. This is another great thing too about the American Association and the Atlantic League and leagues like that. There are a lot of ABL alums doing some great things across the American Association. I mentioned Mikey Reynolds last week. A lot of guys just doing their thing. Michael Krause had a big week over in Milwaukee, from Milwaukee rather, in the American Association. There's a long list of them. I could go on and on about all that. Rather than go through all that this week, we'll save that for next week or so. We'll kind of give you a quick overview of what some of those guys are doing. I want to show you what this summer that the Kansas City T-Bones aren't playing ball, but Alan D. San Miguel is actually we traded places. Now, granted, I don't play for the team; I broadcast, but Alan D. San Miguel is in that 60-man workout squad, and they're spending their time. And I'm going to put this on the screen for you guys. They're spending their time at T-Bone Stadium. This is T-Bone Stadium right here. That is how the ballpark looks now with the Royals before BP there. This is a great job for my mate Nate Miller, the groundskeeper there with the T-Bones. We see a beautiful shot of T-Bone Stadium. That brand new infield looks very, very, very big league right there. And I'm going to bring that back down again. I'm going to show you guys another shot or two as well. But for me personally and for the T-Bones, it's exciting to have the Royals, and even locally in the newspaper and on the radio stations in Kansas City, talking great things about us, talking about the T-Bones name and how good of a facility it is. And if you can make out here, that's Alan D. San Miguel. I'm going to see if I can put it on the screen for you. This is the best I can find of D. San, but that's him with arms crossed to the left of the screen there. Arms crossed with the catching gear on. That's Alan D. San. But they're the Royals playing. That's their batting practice there at T-Bone Stadium right there. A good shot of that. But it's exciting. So I want to brag a little bit on this show just because a lot of people I work with very hard in Kansas City who've had their income substantially chopped down. I mean, we're most of us are on furlough, and it's been a real tough go. And to see that, I'm just very happy and very proud of the T-Bones and what they're doing and being able to showcase. There's one more. Give you guys one more shot here before we close this thing out here. There's a full screen shot of there. There's the Royals doing their infield practice right there. Yeah, it's good looking shot there by the ballpark, but very cool. It's cool for me because it's been a hard. I gotta tell you, and you know me, we're very close. It's been a hard time not being able to call games and to be able to see that, but I just want to brag a bit on the American Association, on the Kansas City T-Bones, and of course tying it back in to Alan D. San Miguel. But anyway, I think we blew through it all pretty quickly here for the most part. Couple things. First off, our plans going forward. Of course, we do this show every Thursday night in the States. Friday morning, it's either breakfast or it's going to be our brekkie. What do we call brunch over there? Is it? Is there a name for it? Just brunch?
Just brunch. Yeah.
Okay, brunch. So brekkie brunch, and then maybe coffee for some. It depends on what time zone you're in. But every
coffee depends on.
Yeah, it depends what coffee zone you're in, I guess. But we do this Thursday night in the States, Friday morning in Australia, and coming up on future shows. First, I want to tease you with this. we talked about the Australian Baseball League, and I talked to Cam Vale via email today. Cam Vale will join us from the ABL and Baseball Australia on the 14th of August. That'll be 2 weeks from 2 weeks from today's show. He'll join us, and I think by then we'll have a lot of hard-hitting questions, and more than anything, I think he has a lot of answers for us, and he's probably a lot like many of the executives in baseball. It's a wait and see, but also changing on the fly as well. So looking forward to having him on. Any other rumors of guests out there as well?
Oh, I think we'll have Luke Hughes on at some point. We'll have him on in the next couple of weeks as well. We'll try to get some other guys on rotating through as well. And look, it'll be good. But I think right now, part of the reason why, even with Cam on in a couple of weeks is better. I mean, it's very hard to, like Australia's just the east coast of Australia is a total mess now with Corona. So it's very hard, probably what looked really optimistic 3 or 4 weeks ago may not, as of today, probably is not as optimistic, but it's, we've got to hope and and you and I talked off air before. I mean, it's August and this thing is still growing and growing.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those things too. As we're kind of in the closing thoughts here, but I kind of skipped over I'll give you guys the updates of where to follow us, but we're kind of here in the States. We call it the second wave, but it's not really the second wave. This is more or less wave. Wave the wave. We most states that came out of it too early went out of lockdown too early, and so. But I think you're seeing the second wave. But I think at least in those states, we're kind of at that point now. We hit the peak. It's going to be a slow go to get back together. But gosh, I know it's one of those things. We're watching the clock or watching the calendar and watching the numbers and watching the situation. And boy, I like you. I'm hoping and hoping, like hope and praying that the calendar and it all works out, because I can't imagine having back-to-back seasons washed away from me. I'd be a mess, man. I'd be breaking out that fiasco flask, mate.
You'll be breaking out the fiasco flask, broadcasting the dog going for a walk.
Yes. I mean, doing that for sure. But where can you follow us? I'll tell you guys that you can follow us on these channels. Of course, our Facebook channel right here. And I promise you guys this. I'm working on the website is basically sort of done. Our new website, which will have these shows on there archived as well, and some daily content. It's a work in progress, but we're all kind of trying to work on the fly with all this pandemic thing. Plus, we're both working our normal situation, so trying to work that out for you. But our Facebook page is a place to go, and you're there right now. Also, our Twitter. And I'll put this up here for you guys too. There you go. You can follow us on Twitter right there. There's Talking Baseball Australia right in the middle of the screen, and then at Paul Morgs and at Dan Vaughan Jr. Love to have you guys join us on Twitter. It's a great place to follow us. We often have our Hot Sports opinions on there, and that's a great place to follow us. But follow us on Twitter. Also, the YouTube page is coming. It's working, but we're going to do some adjusting. Paul, we're actually working on some exciting stuff, aren't we, mate?
Well, there's actually, I'm probably working on more things than I've ever worked on in my life at the moment, which is great. But it's they all take time, DV, and it's we're getting there. It's what's the saying? It's progression, not perfection. So that's
right. We're getting there, and the shows are totally not a meltdown. We only had one meltdown today. The open was a little dicey, but other than that, I mean, it was just because it froze up. But final thoughts, mate. Anything else for anything to look for the week? I guess the final thought for me, and go ahead and give me your final thought. I'll give you mine. Go ahead.
Look, my final thought more is around, how is Major League Baseball going to pivot? Like, obviously, this is not going to get any easier anytime soon. So where do we sit? Like a week ago, we were in a different spot to where we are now. Like, what happens in another week? And are they just going to go? Is it just going to end up becoming almost like a cattle call of getting games in and out, and who plays who doesn't matter? And it's my final thought is I'm not confident that this thing gets finished at the moment, but hopeful, but not confident.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hopeful, prayerful, and all, but my worry is how many more teams will have a series postponed, and do we get to a point, say, in 10 days where we've had enough series postponed where, to make them up, they're going to be playing from here until next Easter. Because right now you've got the Marlins to make up this series, the Phillies and Blue Jays, and if you get too many more series canceled, the mathematics make it where you're just going to have to either just chop the season off at 30 games or what do you do? I mean, it's just maybe somebody's creative and you have to do a tournament, but something like that. How close we're to that? But I'm with you, mate. I'm in the same boat. I'm positive as best I can be, but boy, kind of hard to be, ain't it, mate?
It is very hard. But I just, and we can talk about this later. But I just don't understand how, with the Marlins, why they have taxi squads, and I understand that the taxi squad's not going to be as competitive going up against playing the New York Yankees. But the whole point, in my opinion, was that if one team couldn't play, like, okay, vacate them for in time until they can and bring in the other one. But try to get this thing done. But anyway, I'm again, it's this weekend, no Blue Jays baseball, but it's a chance to watch Aaron Whitefield. DB, your final thought.
Yeah, a couple things too. I didn't get to these earlier, and I kind of skipped through them, but a couple things too to mention as well. We mentioned last week some of these things from an ABL perspective, and I kind of skipped over them a few minutes ago. I'm sorry about that. But Keith Ward is back as the skipper of the Canberra Cavalry. That's good news for them. Of course, took over Michael Collins, a guy who we were very big fans of a couple of years ago, but he's back. And also Bossman Aroa, he's back. Do not pitch this man a fastball. He's back as he's back in return to Canberra.
You can still close your eyes, DB, and take us back to Canberra. Cameron Lamb was on the mound for the Heat, and you could take us back to that broadcast call. It was a walk-off home run. It still is burnt in my memory. I remember just all he was saying is like, okay, whatever we do, don't pitch this guy a fastball. Don't pitch this guy a fastball. And just that ball, I can still see that ball sailing out the right.
Landing at the U.S. Embassy somewhere over on Embassy Road there in Canberra. Yes, but good to see Boss back. He's a fan favorite. Good for the league, and it's good to have him back as he's going to be over in Canberra. And then a guy we both like a lot, the 27-year-old Jordan McArdle is back as well, re-signing. Here's one more good sign for the league. A 2-year deal, partner, 2-year deal for him, and that bodes well. If you're signing 2-year deals, that means there's going to be baseball played in Australia at some point. So that's good news, I think.
Exactly right. I mean, good news for the NFL if you're Patrick Mahomes signing a deal he did as well. So they're pretty confident.
Hey, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, he also chipped in and bought a bit of the Royals as well.
Do you want me to tell you the joke I told the T-Bone staff at our conference call as we close this thing? This is my final thought. Final thought. Okay, what do the Chiefs and Royals have in common in Kansas City? Well, the Hunt family owns the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes now is part owner of the Royals. What do they have in common? Anyone know this answer? They all kind of were like,
yes,
they're all Texans. They're both Texans. You got a Texas Tech guy and an SMU guy. You got an SMU, Texas Tech, all right there. Native Texans. So, but my Chiefs and Royals mates are kind of like, okay, there goes Vaughan, the obnoxious Texan. Next thing he's going to do is tell us about Australian coffee. So, good. Speaking of, it's time to grab a cup. I'll let you go, mate. Have a great rest of your week. Appreciate your time as always, mate.
Thanks, DV. Great show.
There he is. That's Paul Morgan there in Perth. And let's close this thing out. We'll bring him down there. Again, we'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, as we'll get rolling here on Talking Baseball Australia. Don't forget to follow us on our channels as well. Let's put the close up. Let's close this thing out. Please be kind. Virtual hugs to all y'all worldwide. Much love to all y'all. Please. And one thing I keep saying in all my broadcasts, let's come out of this thing better as human beings in the end. Okay. Talking Baseball Australia. Thanks for joining us. Everybody joined us along the line. Appreciate your time. And we'll see you guys next week on Talking Baseball Australia. Good night, everybody. Or good morning, everybody. Grab that coffee.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Let's get some runs!